Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pitch. Thank you for being here today. My name is Bear, and I head up the developer advocacy team here at Slack. And as part of my job, I talk to developers all over the world about what they want to know about Slack's platform. And we can tell them some stuff, being from Slack. We can tell them how to write integrations. We can provide them tooling. But one of the questions that we get over and over from companies we talk to is, well, what do customers at big companies want? What does it actually take to get my product rolled out at a giant corporation? Where can I find paying customers? And so that's what we're here to answer today. 4 of our most innovative companies are going to be having just minutes to pitch IT leads from some of the biggest companies out there. We're going to be joined by IT leads from Zuora, Bloomberg, and American Express today, giving us their opinions, their takes on what it takes to get actually rolled out inside their organizations. So first, let me welcome, please, Alvina Antar, who's the CIO of Zuora, to the stage, panelist number 1. Michael Shane is the head of digital innovation at Bloomberg. And Aimee Cardwell is VP and unit CIO at American Express. Thank you all for being here today. We're really excited to get your take on some of these startups. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off with a company that some of you might have heard of before. They are focused on helping your company live its company values every day. Please welcome Veronica and Joseph from Growbot.
Hello. How's everybody doing today? Staying cool? Kind of. Here, go over. So we're Growbot. I'm Veronica Belmont. I run product on the team.
Joseph Estrada, I'm the CTO and co-founder.
And Growbot, as Bear mentioned, is a team recognition tool that lives in Slack.
Yeah, so Growbot helps you build a habit of appreciation at your company. And through appreciation, you can motivate core behaviors that you want your company to live by. Usually, a lot of our customers define their core values based on company values. So they codify exactly what...
In your face. You got to hold it like this.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Whoa, I can
Thank
hear
you.
myself. All right. So, should I start over?
Yeah.
No time. Gotta go.
So through core values, you motivate specific behaviors that you want your company to live by. So what our companies have found is that it's really hard to live certain core values because they're hard to remember. It's hard to actually understand what they mean. And it's hard to know how to make them actionable. So 79 out of 80 employees in this recent survey that one of our companies took did not know any of their core values.
And that's a major problem. So we will run you through a demo here. I'm going to give some kudos. I actually looked for the core values of your 3 companies, and I only found Amex's on their website, so good on you for that. So you can see what the core values here by typing values into Growbot via DM. You can also do that in a channel by typing @GrowbotValues. Then I can hop into general and type in values as well. That's the demonstration of the threaded version of values there. It's just good. You can pin that to a channel, keep it really top of mind so anyone can check back on that at any given time to remember what those core values are. I can give kudos to Joseph for helping me plan our presentation here today. Thank you very much for that. And I can attach some fun emoji reactions to that. We'll do Slack. And then also values. So we tag them all with values so that way you can search them very easily while you're giving messages out. Growbot responds. That means that it has tracked the kudos there and the values. And then we encourage a pile-on of support by clicking on the emoji reactions over time. So you can follow that up on leaderboards. You can check that on the dashboards to see which emoji are tracking the most. And then I want to log in and see all that action on the web. We use tokenized logins there, so it's very secure. This is our new landing page. So this is the web feed where you can see all of that happening. Of course, it's a demo, so there's not a ton going on yet. But if you click into the values drill down, you see all of those values there, ordered by the number of kudos that have been received under each value. You can click in and export that data if you want to integrate with any of your recognition tools or your one-on-ones or any of those sorts of things, manager tools, etc. There we go.
Yeah, so you can imagine if you're using Growbot a year from now, you'll be able to collect all of this feedback that's already happening inside of your Slack channels. And you'll have ammo to actually feed a lot of the processes within your organization, as Veronica mentioned, like one-on-ones, performance reviews, monthly check-ins on values. More importantly, you'll be able to have a lot of the data around values and which values are working for your company with actual insights and actual behavior from employees around those values. So we're pretty much unlocking all of this data and building a system to allow you to improve those core behaviors over time.
Yep, these conversations are happening in Slack already, but having the data to actually act on them and improve your team over time is really important. Thank you.
Thank you both. We're going to take it now to questions from our panel. Any of you have any questions for the Growbot team?
Yeah, so as you imagine, our values are also plastered all over the walls of our company. So in our company, our employees know the values really well. We also have a plugin in Slack called something like Give Somebody a Taco, which is the equivalent of, hey, good job. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, everybody gets it when I give them a taco. They're like, okay, I know that I did something good. What's the benefit of incorporating company values into the feedback system?
So through appreciation, first of all, you can motivate people to act a certain way, right? Because when you give kudos to someone, it's pretty much like the model behavior. So it's like you're telling everybody, hey, this person did something great. It's a specific thing that they did. Everybody else should follow this behavior. By tying company values in, basically lead the direction or lead the behavior towards what those company values define. So it's up to the organization to sort of define those in a way that helps your business succeed. And then what we try to do is build a habit around living those over time and then building the muscle to sort of.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies have their values plastered up everywhere. We see that time and time again, but the employees don't really know how to make them actionable, how to actually do things around them. So we give them that framework of understanding, okay, be decisive. I saw that Joseph got 6 kudos last month for being decisive. Now I understand what that behavior is about.
I have a question. What about incorporating stories? So not just words, but stories that allow for the kudos to actually be more meaningful. Are you able to integrate with video or anything beyond just words?
That's really interesting. Yeah, so right now, the whole point of using the keywords is to kind of give context around the recognition. So when you put the description of what the kudos is there for, you're able to look back at that and say, oh, this was around this huge project that we did. All these 5 or 10 different people worked on it, and they received, a props for that. But yeah, I think that's actually a really great idea to use more, media and stuff like that. I think, we're working with different kinds of, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's on our roadmap to actually get closer to the actual work that's being done. Because kudos are usually about some kind of work unit or something that you've done. So eventually you want to go all the way where employees are. So if it's in GitHub or if it's in Google Docs, wherever it is, you want to be there to be able to capture kudos. But we haven't thought too much around like rich media in terms of you want to record a video and say, hey, you did a good job. And it's like something more special, I guess.
It's much more meaningful. I mean, we talk about culture through stories. And that's why I feel like the recognition and values can also be articulated through stories.
Yeah, we feel like those kudos are contributing to those stories.
So we've got time for one more question, quick.
I have a quick 2-part question. How, in terms of people, number of users, how big is your biggest customer right now?
I believe it's around 12,000.
12,000.
Yeah, but we're really focused on the 50 to 250 user companies. That's where we really shine. But I think there's a lot of capacity for growing into huger, much larger enterprise organizations.
So at this point, do you have an idea of what about Growbot will need to change or evolve to, say, go from working with having your biggest customer be a 12,000 person company to 2 or 3 times that?
So one of the things that I'm really excited about is doing values by team. So right now we're really looking at the overall organizational values. But your values for engineering are going to be very different from your values in sales and marketing, for example. So being able to get really granular about what's important to each team and highlighting that, not just on the team level, but also on the organizational level, I think is really where it's going to shine.
That's great to hear. Thank you guys so much. Big hand for Growbot, both of you for coming out today. Thank you, Veronica and Joseph. Now the judges have quite a bit to noodle on hearing from Growbot, and we are ready to talk to our next startup. It's a company that changes how teams share critical knowledge. Please welcome Liana, the founder of Memo.
Hi, I'm Liana, and I'm the co-founder and product designer of Memo. Memo is a wiki for Slack teams that's always up to date. Memo is great for quickly sharing and saving onboarding information, meeting notes, DevOps instructions, or links. Your information will always stay fresh, as Memo will smartly remind you when content gets stale. So let's talk about 3 problems that people face today with traditional wikis by taking the example of the CTO of a 20-person startup trying to set up a company wiki. Then we are going to talk about how Memo helps address these 3 problems. So traditionally, our CTO will spend hours writing onboarding instructions, for example, for new hires in the wiki. She will come back periodically to update that content, but this month, deploy instructions get changed, and she forgets to change them in the wiki. A week later, a new engineer is hired. He goes to the wiki, and he tries to get set up, but he cannot find deploy instructions that work. So that right there is the first problem that people have with traditional wikis. Content gets stale. It is hard to save new information. People waste hours writing it. And then after it's written, it's hard to tell which content is still relevant and which is outdated. So back to our engineer. He starts looking. He reads the entire wiki. He looks in Google Docs. He even goes to the repo in GitHub. But he cannot find anything that works. So that is the second problem with wikis today. It is hard to find information. It is hard to keep information organized in a way that makes sense for your entire team. And it is hard if you manage to do that, it is hard to find information that is relevant for you as an engineer or a marketer or a designer. So finally, our engineer just gets frustrated. So he goes to the CTO and he asks her in Slack, what are those deploy instructions? He gets his answer and he moves on. So that is the third problem with wikis today. They are inaccessible. They do not live where you and your team work, and you have to constantly context switch in order to find information that you need for work. So now let's talk about how the story changes when our CTO uses Memo as a company wiki. Our CTO writes onboarding instructions in Memo very, very quickly. How does she do it so quickly? Well, she picks up that content from Slack, where onboarding questions got repeatedly answered in the past. So Memo is never stale. It is ridiculously easy to save fresh content in Memo by picking it up from Slack, where important information is constantly pushed into channels. You can save information from Slack in Memo with 1 click by starring important messages to save them to Memo. If a month has passed and no updates have been made to the note with deploy instructions, our CTO will be pinged by Memo. Auto reminder about the deploy instructions note. Is this note still accurate? She realizes it isn't, so she quickly updates it. So when content does get stale with Memo, your team knows about it. Content that's old and stale gets aged, and you get notified about it. Our CTO quickly solidified all notes saved from Slack in a memo board called onboarding. With Memo, staying organized is very, very easy, as organization in Memo is minimal. You can organize your saved notes in public or private browsable boards. So now, if you want to find a note or a board, you can do that very easily as well with fast navigation and powerful search. Finally, when our new engineer is hired, the moment he gets on the company Slack, he can just pull up the memo board with onboarding information. Deploy instructions are also now up to date. So with Memo, you never have to leave your Slack to find information from your wiki. So there is no more need for context switching to search for information that you need for work. So that is how Memo will save you and your team hours of productivity traditionally wasted on searching for information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Judges, what are your questions for Memo?
I'm particularly interested in how this will integrate with existing documentation. We have tens of thousands of pages in Confluence for documentation across our org. So this is great for onboarding for a small team, but I don't know how to make it last and persist with all of the other application documentation.
Yeah, so there are two aspects to that. The first one is how does it scale to a bigger company? The second one is how do you bring all of your documentation into Memo? So Memo right now is great for teams of 10 to 100, either companies of 10 to 100 or smaller teams of 10 to 100 within bigger companies. So if you have a team within your company of 10 to 100, we can help you import all of the data that's relevant for your team from Confluence or from GitHub Wiki or from wherever you have it. We can help you import it into Memo. The second way is if it is very, very likely that most of that information will get put into Slack at some point. So you can just pick it up from Slack by starting it. The moment you start it, you'll have it in Memo. And you can build up your knowledge like that into Memo.
Thanks.
Talk to me about user roles, right? Because on a team of 10 or 50, maybe it's pretty obvious who should be the admin for the documentation and the wiki. But how granular is the control around who's an editor, who can view what? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So right now, the people who populate most of the content in Memo are team leaders. So you have engineering managers going and putting content into Memo. The other way that you can go and work with Memo is to consume whatever has been put into Memo. And that is being done by the entire team, not just managers, engineers, whoever else is interested in consuming that information. Right now, anybody on the team can add or edit any of the notes you shared. However, we haven't seen a lot of bad actors just editing the notes that you find useful. So we usually have an owner to a Memo board. They are the ones who created it. You can see who they are, and they manage it. And other people can add to that board.
We have time for one more.
I have a question on integration. So do you have any current integration or any planned integration with tools like Salesforce? Or you mentioned the onboarding use case with ticketing. Do you have integration with ticketing systems so that if you don't get your question answered, you can submit a ticket?
So we don't right now, but it is on our roadmap to integrate more with tools like Trello or Salesforce. We're working hard to do that.
It's going to be critical.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we had quite a few users ask for that, so it is on our roadmap.
Okay.
It's very exciting to hear. Thank you again so much for being here and presenting today. Huge thank you to Memo team, and thanks again to our judges. Next up, we have a Y Combinator graduate company that's building better training for the enterprise. Please welcome Persia and Ted from WorkRamp.
Hi, I'm Persia, and this is Ted, and we're founders at WorkRamp, a product that allows you to train your employees directly where they work, in Slack. Now, as recent security breaches have shown us, whether it was the HBO hack back in August that led to the release of a coveted Game of Thrones script, or the Equifax hack just last week that led to the release of 143 million customer records, it's clear that the hackers are coming. Well, as we sit around discussing how to better protect our organizations, we're often left debating buying better endpoint security software or better firewall protection, often missing what's one of our biggest vulnerabilities, our people. Now, in the case of the HBO hack that occurred back in August, security experts believe that it was due to a single employee accessing an insecure device outside of the company network, leading to the release of 1.5 terabytes of proprietary data. So how do we turn one of your biggest vulnerabilities into your biggest assets? We do that by bringing training directly into Slack with WorkRamp. We allow you to alert your organization directly in a channel when a threat is approaching. We surface contextual training so they don't have to actually leave Slack to accomplish it. And then we also show you reporting and real-time analytics so that you have a permanent pulse on your organization. I'm going to hand it over to Ted, who's going to walk us through a demo.
Great. So imagine you're at HBO and you're Jon Snow, just minding your own business, keeping away the White Walkers, and all of a sudden you get an alert. And this alert says there's a security threat in the environment. In this alert, you get a security training presented to you. You can launch this, send this out to your entire team with only a few clicks, and you'll see this get launched here in a few seconds, keeping your enterprise secure. Now switch gears. Let's say you're Daenerys. You're just a normal employee conquering the world, hanging out in your own channel in Slack, and all of a sudden, you get an alert saying you need to go take this security training. And you have to take it by this specific date because we need full coverage to make sure our enterprise is secure. So you take this training, and the best part of this is that when you're done, it sends back statistics and reports back to your security team and to your InfoSec team to show the coverage you have. And so you'll see with our Unfurl API that you'll have 63% coverage across this specific security threat, and you still have a ways to go to make sure your enterprise is secure.
Thanks, Ted. And while we showed you what security training looks like in Slack, that's not the only type of training that we're capable of enabling. Whether you're training engineers at PayPal or you're training salespeople at Twilio, we found that by making it real-time and contextual within Slack, it's inherently more valuable. Thank you.
All right, judges, panel, what do you think? What do you want to know?
So you talked about alerts coming through to the security teams, the InfoSec teams. Hey, you should create a training on this. What's the source for those alerts? Are they customizable? Do you have different sets of criteria for different industries, different verticals, things like that? How does that work?
Yeah, so for our first version of the bot, what we actually have is a content curator. We actually scan the top 50 security blogs and look at recommendations from them. And then we essentially push this content out through the alerting bot, and then it flows into the rest of our product from there as well.
Gotcha.
And where does that training come from? So WannaCry was the example that you used. You know, does our security team have to develop WannaCry training, or have you already developed that?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll provide the framework for you. So if it's, let's say, the WannaCry threat that previously happened, we'll give you the framework, and then you can customize it using our simple-to-use editor, and you can add custom info for your organization.
So you're assuming that we're going to integrate with our existing training solution, or we're going to use your training and customize it to serve our needs?
Yeah, so you could do it either or. So a lot of our larger organizations, like the PayPals, McAfee's of the world, complement their existing solutions. So you could get the alert from us, but do the training on your system. Or if you prefer, you can also leverage us.
It's a good option to have. What about stats? So you mentioned stats. How do you drive for increased training coverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we've actually found is that by enabling peer recognition directly within Slack, we saw a huge boost, up to 80% of people completing the training that's been assigned to them. So we'll push out a completed training to the channel that you've assigned, and you'll see that people start piling in, sending each other emojis and congratulations, and becoming more likely to spur their teammates and their peers to also complete their trainings.
Add in some awards.
Yeah, throw in some gifts,
cards.
gift cards, whatever you want to give them.
Yeah.
As a bank, we actually need 100% compliance on our training. So what do you do with the long tail of the last 20%? How do we get those guys to onboard?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the important pieces of that is even having visibility into that problem. So as Ted showed in the demo, even understanding who are those last 10 people or those last 15 who haven't completed it, and then constantly being able to push it out to them. So I think just increasing the amount of accountability and transparency and the opportunities for you to push content to them in a seamless way.
Great.
We have time for one more fast one.
I have a weird one. One of the things we do at Bloomberg around this kind of thing is, in addition to the regular old super exciting corporate training that everyone has to do, is that we will regularly receive emails designed to trick us into clicking bad links, except instead of being from bad guys, they're from the security team. So this is a way out there question. Have you folks thought about how extensible the platform could become in terms of integrating with corporate email systems or other places where companies may want to conduct training sort of in that way?
A little tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, so for sure. So we've looked at different integrations. So we do have integrations already with systems like Salesforce, with Zendesk. Also, we have an email workflow function. And so as you're creating those trainings, you can actually trigger different types of workflows as people get through specific tasks to make it more interactive. So one great example is we have a version where you can actually record a short video on our platform as you trigger that part of the workflow. But it's just an example of some of the advanced type of integrations we can have that's not stodgy like old systems you guys might have used in the past. So.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Here. Another round of applause for WorkRamp. So last but not least, we have one more app from the 53, the makers of the sketching app Paper and the award-winning stylus Pencil. Please welcome George, the CEO of 53 and the maker of Paste for Slack, a way that we will change up how we create presentations.
Thank you. So at 53, we're really passionate about creating tools that unlock creativity and innovation. So today we'll talk about Paste, the first presentation tool designed for the messaging era. So messaging has arrived thanks to Slack at many companies, and we're sharing ideas faster than ever. Yet we still build decks. They are a de facto way how we communicate and frame up conversations. They help us share stories, large and small. They help us make sense of the complex work that we do today. Yet the tools from today, the presentation tools from today, are really not built for the pace of messaging. They're very time-consuming to pull together, and they're really kind of divorced now from the very conversation they're trying to inform. The worst example is if people are emailing slides back and forward. Do not do that. It's not secure. It wastes time and ideas will get lost. So it's time for an update that's fresh, that's fast, that's collaborative, and we got to make it beautiful too. Let's take a look at Paste. For us, this all begins in the storyboard view. This is the place where you can quickly assemble all types of different ideas. So you drag and drop in all types of files. So images, videos, sketches, diagrams, and it also works with web content. So here you're taking a link from a New York Times article, you paste it into Paste, and it becomes a slide for you. This allows the user to focus on the flow, the narrative, the bigger picture, what really matters. If you have to provide more content, just go into a particular asset and add text. So we do the formatting, we do the layout, you stay focused on the flow, share more of your ideas. It's fast, it's beautiful, it saves time. This also works for more complex arrangements. So coming up is a preview of our mobile application. And if you want to drop in more assets, Paste will handle this rich layout for you as well. Now, you may have noticed that this deck lives in a Slack channel, and that's a very important point. So if you now want to have a comment and a conversation about this particular deck, that same conversation flows right into Slack as well. And this is now also an important point here to distinguish, that for IT administrators and end users, they are now sitting on the same table. The way how permissions work for this deck follows Slack channel lines. So this makes this super easy to deploy and super easy to secure. Our native Slack integration means that at any moment you can also summon your team for help. So here I'm calling out my designer KJ to help with a slide and add in some logos. So KJ is now notified in Slack and can handle that assignment right from there. In this case, like updating the slide with some content and some media. Right, so it's these types of integrations that will make sure your team is just better prepared. Going to the home view of Paste, and this view always gives me the chills, because you can see all the creation, all the decks that are happening across your entire team, right? This is where the great thinking is surfaced. So for us, like our team meeting channel has all the team meetings in there, right? It's a great way to stay up to date, something we build collaboratively. A new employee joining comes to the X Hack Week channel, can see all the ideas we've been working on over the last several months. We use reactions to upvote and build upon ideas. No matter what your project is, small or little, like the deck and the conversation evolve together. So here is just a very complex example of our upcoming paper app release in the October timeframe. So this just brings the entire team together. So moving back to some other customer examples, like we have a variety of innovative companies that are trying Paste in different scenarios. Airbnb's framing up virtual tourism stories in Paste. Artsy's doing editorial reviews. We have companies coordinating their offsites across coast. You have Cornell developing innovation projects, from business development to sales presentations to team meetings to brand presentations. They're all being developed in Paste today. So here's the thing. Messaging has this incredible promise that a team's best ideas will be heard, will be improved, and implemented. Paste makes that process, one, visual and visible to the entire team. Because it's when our disparate messages come together and woven into a shared narrative, that's when our thinking and our understanding is advanced. So make your stories with Paste today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that demo. Panel, what questions do you have?
I have one question, conversion. Can I take all my ugly presentations and convert them into beautiful Paste presentations?
You know, you can't just take a PDF and drop it in, yeah. But it's so fast to just copy and paste the content that matters into Paste. So you just essentially just hit copy, paste, and we'll build the deck for you.
How about going the other direction? Exporting, portability, things like that.
Just don't put it in email. But yeah, we have an export to PDF function in there.
What about exporting to Keynote or PowerPoint or some other presentation platform, in case you have to go somewhere?
Or the right customer will certainly implement that feature. But we think there is a benefit, right? You have to keep in mind the moment you move it away from Slack, you're putting your ideas into a place that's not discoverable, that people can't work off on, and you're removing that knowledge repository from the workflow, right? So there's a risk there.
So what's the presentation experience like inside of Paste?
You just saw Paste.
Yeah, but in terms of presenting the deck to others.
Yeah, so we have several modes of presentation. We have a mobile view where you can quickly browse through it. It's optimized for mobile. And the other part is there's also an in-room presentation experience where essentially it goes full screen. What's fascinating about the type of presentations, what you'll see is as you increase the rate of creating decks and the conversation around this is that it becomes like an editable document. So our presentation view will remain editable, and you can just keep rolling with that then.
So this absolutely solves a need that we have at American Express, and I'm interested to learn more about it. But I'm curious because most of us use branded templates. So this is very beautiful, and it works great for an Airbnb that's a little more loose, but we're a little tighter with our branding. Could I start with a branded template and build a presentation around that?
Yes. So we have really a world-class design team at 53. They're fantastic. We have an extensible branding and theme framework inside of it. And so again, we would work with a deployment and making sure that essentially this becomes your branded stationery for your ideas.
Awesome.
We have time for one more.
What about the size of the document? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so decks can start from just a few slides to hundreds of slides, right? So they're fairly, so they really vary based on the size of the deck that you're using. On our end,
is it compressing? Like I'm wondering the images do you have compression logic, to ensure that the actual content is not huge and unable to be exported?
So the content is hosted on Amazon S3, so a lot of this content is streamed in and it's then cached locally, but that's then cached through your browser. So we take advantage of most web compression technology. So the videos we transcode and compress, so there's also a huge boon. Anyone who's ever had to deal with videos, just drop them into Paste. We upload, transcode, shrink it, put it into the right size that for the right video, like in your phone, you get the right resolution, on the desktop, you get the right resolution. Same with large images, sketch files, like you can just drop in a very high resolution image, and again, we will just serve up in the right amount of data for you. But again, like there are certain specific things that we can work through if there are specific types of data that you have to support.
Great. Thank you so much. One more hand for George and for Paste. And another big round for all 4 of our companies who had real guts getting up here today, pitching all of you, as well as our panelists. So panelists, What are your thoughts here? Now is the big moment of truth. We've got our founders and our representatives from all these companies sitting right here in the front row. Who's making the cut? Who's not quite making the cut? Let's start with you.
So I'm really excited about Paste. You know, I'm an IT person. You know, I know nothing about UX design, and the reality is I want to display beautiful content, and it's painful. And so being able to see the demo and what's capable, you know, within Paste is really enticing. You know, the reality is, you know, even the collaboration, I think, is critical, right? That's why Google has, you know, all document collaboration through Google Docs and presentations has really allowed a lot of teams to collaborate across content. And so being able to leverage Slack with that Paste content is really solid. You know, I'm very interested in taking a look at that. WorkRamp, I'm also really excited about. I feel like this is something that we don't spend enough time focusing on, and being able to understand, you know, and be triggered on events is something that I think we all need, and that I don't personally have. And so, you know, I'd love to learn more about the triggering capability, the integration with existing training capability that we have internally at Zuora. But those are the two that I'm most excited about.
Great. What might make the cut for Bloomberg?
Well, thanks to all of you for coming out. I think all four of you are working on really interesting problems. And honestly, all of these, in at least one way, like make my nerd heart sing. I think that there's a lot of really beautiful design and really thoughtful product thinking here. The two that really stuck out to me, which are people that I might like to have some conversations with, were Memo and Paste, I think. Just in my criteria were around what do I think has the greatest chance of feasibility in the environment where I operate, and what do I think could potentially deliver value fastest. So anyway, but I thought they were all just awesome, really, each in their own way. There was something about every single one of them that kind of made me smile, and there's hope for the future. Yeah.
That's a lovely optimistic spin to end out this session. And Aimee, on behalf of Amex, what do you think?
Do I have to be as optimistic? I'm kidding. Well, first I wanted to congratulate Memo on the best use of the poop icon in a presentation that I personally have ever seen. Our trouble with Memo is because I think Amex is too big of a company to wait until everybody types our documentation. I think you're targeted at a smaller group, and that's totally fine. The idea was really good. For the Growbot folks, I wanted to say it's a genius idea. Our engineers at the moment are asking for not kudos, but actual feedback. So they want to hear what they're not doing well, just as importantly as what they are doing well. And I think when I try to think about what the value proposition of Growbot is, you know, we're using a tool, I think it's called Captain Feedback now that we're piloting. We're looking for feedback tools that allow us to have real-time feedback. So if I were you, I would start thinking in that direction. WorkRamp is a great idea. Actually, I'm going to chat with the InfoSec guys. What I like about it isn't the normal training that we have to do at large banks, but that instant training, the WannaCry stuff, the, hey, heads up, there's something in the environment that you need to know about. Love that idea, so that was super. But I would actually like to chat with Paste because I'm literally solving this problem right now. As an executive, I build content for a town hall, and I want that same content to be shared across a number of other executives' town halls. And there's no great way for me to say, hey, my content's over here, where's your stuff? So that we can trade back and forth and make sure that we're getting great messaging out to lots of teams. So kudos on that one. I think we all agree that was really spectacular.
Awesome. Thank you, judges, so much for your feedback, and thank you all for being here to listen. Hopefully you've gotten some good insights about what really matters at large companies when we're thinking about deploying apps out to large organizations. So a big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you again for being here today.